Hey y'all, welcome to Restless Chipotle Kitchen. Today we are making angel biscuits. They are so high, so fluffy, so light, they almost float away. Absolutely delicious. They're a combination between a biscuit and a roll. So let's get started. So y'all, angel biscuits are kind of a cross between a biscuit and a roll. It's a yeasted biscuit. But they're so easy to work with. They're not at all like a yeast roll or dinner roll, in that you don't have to do a lot of kneading, you don't have to let them rise a lot. These are a super simple way to get a high, light dinner bread without a lot of work, okay? So easy, and they're great for people that haven't worked with yeast before. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to check the water and make sure that it's warm but not too hot. And this is sitting at about 105 degrees. You want it between 105 and 110, definitely no more than 110. It should feel like really nice bath water, unless you like to scald yourself in the bathtub, and then you probably want to use the thermometer. To that, we're going to add 1 packet of yeast, or I always get in arguments about this. I use 1 packet of yeast or 1 tablespoon of yeast, but a packet of yeast is actually about 2 1/4 teaspoons. So if you want to be exact, you can measure out 2 1/4 teaspoons. But this is just 1 packet. And then to that, I'm going to add about a tablespoon of the sugar for the rolls, and mix that up good. And then we're going to let that sit for about 5 minutes to proof the yeast. It will bubble up, and it will tell us that the yeast is alive and energetic and working. So until that happens, we're going to set that aside. To a large bowl, we want to add 2 1/2 cups of flour. It's best to use a low protein flour like White Lily is one of the brands. You just want, in fact, that's the best one, honestly. You just want a low protein all-purpose flour for biscuits. If you can't get that, or you don't know what that is, you can just use all-purpose flour too. It's not that big of a deal. But if you want really light, tender biscuits, definitely the low protein flour is the way to go. So I have 1 1/2 cups of flour in here. And I wanted to, because some people have trouble measuring flour or knowing how to measure it, I wanted to go ahead and measure it out for y'all so that you could see how the right way to do it. This is my flour canister, and I actually used all of it in this. So what you're going to do is you're going to lightly spoon your flour into your cup measure, or 1/2 cup measure, whatever measuring size you're using, right? Just lightly spoon it. You're not going to dip the cup in there and pack it in. You're just going to lightly smooth it, or lightly spoon it, sorry. And let it mound up over the cup so that you know that the cup is really good and full. Once the cup is good and full like that, you're going to go back and level it off with the side of your spoon or knife. And that is how you measure flour perfectly. Of course, the best thing to do is to weigh it, but we won't go there. All right. So there's my 2 1/2 cups of flour. To that, I'm going to add baking soda, the rest of the salt, the rest of the sugar. You know, when you've got a lot of white mixtures in these bowls, they're not marked, it's really kind of hard to know what it is. And baking powder. So baking soda, baking powder, sugar, and salt. And mix that up good. Now, this is the way that I do it, but not everybody does it this way. You want to have your butter very, very cold. And I like to grate the butter in. I think it makes the biscuits lighter and fluffier, but you can You can add the butter in like a food processor, or you can cut it in with 2 knives or a pastry cutter. I just like to do it this way. Try it this way if you've never tried it, but it does, to me, it helps pie crusts and scones and biscuits to be flakier. You want to mix the butter shreds, or grated butter, whatever you want to call it, in pretty good every couple of minutes, because if you don't, it'll start getting melty and sticking together and you'll have big clumps of butter, and that's no good. But to do that, you just put some flour over it and just give it a quick mix, and then go back and finish up. We're putting in 1/2 cup of butter to this. You want it to be very cold. It gets warm as you're holding it and gets a little melty. And with the lights and everything in here, this is going to get a little meltier than I like, but it'll be fine. And just a little bit more. Put those pieces in there so we don't waste any. And then I'm going to scrape this off. All of that goes in there. Now you're just going to mix that butter in there really well. See how our yeast is doing. See how foamy the yeast got in that past couple of minutes? That's what you want. You want it to foam up. All right, and we have buttermilk that I've warmed up, and it should be around no more than 110. Ooh, it's a little warm, so we're gonna have to wait on that. So, all right, that's looking pretty good. So we're going to add the yeast and the warm buttermilk mixture, and then we're just going to mix that right up very quickly. It's not going to be like a batter when you're mixing it. It's going to actually be more like a biscuit dough or a pie dough. It's going to be very rough, and it's not going to hold together just yet. Keep mixing it. And when you're not seeing any more dry flour, then check it and see if you've got a soft dough that will hold together, and we do. So the next thing to do is to flour your board a little bit and put your dough out on the floured board, and you're going to knead it very lightly. And by that I mean form it into a ball, and then just very gently just kind of give it a little push and a little knead, just so everything holds together well. You don't want to squish it together because that's going to make your biscuits tough, but you want it to be kneaded enough that they're not crumbly too. Once you've kneaded that for just a few seconds and it gets a little bit, it gets smooth, and I'm not pushing all the way down like I would with bread dough. I'm just gently pushing, gently kneading. Until we get a nice smooth ball of dough. I'm gonna get a little more of the flour and take my rolling pin and roll it out. This was actually my mom's rolling pin. It's really old, and the handle's not turning very well. So much for that. But anyway, so you want to roll it out gently. Don't press down too hard. Now, my husband says that these are too little to be biscuits, but I use a fancy biscuit cutter here. It's a tomato paste can, and I like biscuits to be tall and small. So if you like bigger biscuits, this will make maybe 6, and for these smaller ones that are going to be the size around of a tomato paste can, they make about 12. And that's, you know, give or take. It depends on how thick you roll them. What you're going to do is cut straight down with your biscuit cutter. You don't want to twist it, just go straight down. If you twist it, it's going to make the sides seal up and your biscuits won't rise as high and they won't be as flaky. So straight down. Until you have however many you can get out of there. And you can gather up the scraps and very gently pat them out so that you can get a couple of more biscuits. So I think I'm going to get the 12. There's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe even 13. Ooh. Straight down. Don't roll the scraps out more than once. So take the last bit of it and just kind of freeform that into a regular biscuit. So I actually got 14 out of this, I think. There's 4, 8, 12, 13, 14, yeah. All right, let me clean up my mess for a minute. We'll go on to the next step. So I've covered a baking sheet with parchment paper. You could also use wax paper or silk hat, or you could just lightly spray your baking sheet, but I really like to use the parchment. And then just set the biscuits on there about 2 inches apart. What we're gonna do is we're gonna let those rise for 10 minutes. That's all they need, just 10 minutes. And honestly, they don't even need all of that, but you know, the more time they have to rise, the fluffier they're gonna be. So I'm gonna leave these here like this, and I will be back in 10 minutes. All right, y'all, now I have let these rise for about 10 minutes, and as you can see, look how fluffy they've gotten. Some people let them rise for up to an hour. I have never had to do that. Mine have always risen pretty high pretty quickly. If you want to let them rise a little bit more, then you can let them rise for up to an hour, or you can get them to this point, cover lightly with plastic wrap, and slip them in your refrigerator and let them rise overnight and bake them fresh in the morning. That works too. If you let them rise overnight in the refrigerator, be sure to let them sit out on the counter for about 30 minutes to an hour before baking, just to let them come to room temperature and finish rising a little bit, okay? All right, now I'm going to take just a little bit of butter, and melted butter, and I'm going to gently just brush the top of these a little bit. I'm going to just to give them a nice little buttery glow. When they go in the oven, they'll brown beautifully, they'll have buttery flavor, and they'll be delicious. One of these days, I'm going to try letting them rise for an hour. I just don't usually have that much patience, y'all. I'm usually ready to eat these things. All right, once you've done that, we're just going to put them in a preheated 400-degree oven for about 12 minutes. Okay, y'all, here we are. This is after about a minute under the broiler, and they're nice and golden brown. And I'm just going to give them another quick, brush with the butter. Actually got a little bit more brown than I had planned. My son walked in and in between video sets, because that's what happens when you work at home. And I got to talking to him and I kind of forgot to check on these. But they're still delicious. They are still a pretty color brown. They're so light and fluffy. I ran out of melted butter, so I'm just going to do like this, right? Keep it easy. Now, these are a little bit crusty on the top. That's how I like them. But if you want them softer, then all you need to do is take a towel and cover them up right here, just like that. Cover them up for about 5 minutes, and the tops will soften, the whole crust will soften right up, and they will be delicious. So look how big, you see that? Look how big those rose. And let's open that up. Oh, y'all, look at that. Does that not look delicious? So soft and fluffy and flaky. So y'all, Angel biscuits, look how good those look. So fluffy and flaky. I love these because they're quick and easy, and they're perfect for busy lives. You can get them, from start to finish done in 30 minutes. And they're even great for like Thanksgiving or Christmas, holidays, when you don't really have time to do a full dinner roll like the cloverleaf rolls that I showed y'all a couple of weeks ago, but you still want something homemade and kind of rolly on the table, right? Homemade bread, there is nothing like it. Well, that's where these come in. They are perfect for that. Oh my God, they're so good. I know you're gonna love them. Give them a try. They're great for breakfast. Put gravy over them at breakfast time. Put syrup over them, honey on them. Serve them at the dinner table. Serve them at your holiday table. They are so good. You're gonna love them. They freeze well, and they're delicious. So I'll talk to y'all next week. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to come back. And I love y'all. Bye-bye.